This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning to everybody in the US. Good afternoon to everybody in India. And good evening also. We're very excited today to have the Pravachana Malika talk number 34 on the topic of spiritual practices and moral disciplines in the teachings of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. We're very excited and happy to invite Dr. Jayanti P. Sahoo, who is the Associate Professor in the Department of Philosophy at the Janaki Devi Memorial College, University of Delhi. So today's program will have the Veda Kusumanjali by the students of the Kendra and the Sangeetanjali followed by the keynote talk. And we have Dr. Ingalalli to give concluding remarks and Srimati Matthew to give the vote of thanks. So with that, we will start with the Vedic prayer, Veda Kusumanjali. So please, Vasan sir, if you can start.
No, Ravindra is there.
Ravindra Garu, yes, please.
Sir, Veda Kusumanjali also Vasan sir is doing, or should I do, sir?
I don't know about Vasan presence or anybody.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi
Yeah.
Om Apadamuli Paryantam Gurunam Akritim Smaret Tena Buddhaha Pranashyante Siddhyanti Cha Manorathaha Om Bhadram Karne Vishunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabir Yajatraha Tirai Rangai Etastava Guntastanuvihi Vashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravah Swasti na Pusham Vishvavedah Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti na Brahaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Om Agnenaya Supataraye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yodhyasma Juhuranameno Uyishtam Te Namabhuktim Vidhema Om Shanti 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 Om Apyayanto Mamangani Vak Pranaschakshuhu Shotramado Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmaupanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuriyam Mama Brahma Nirakarotu Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirate Ya Upanishatsu Dharma He Maya Santo He Maya Santo Om Shanti 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 Om Na Brahman Brahmana Brahma Varchasi Jayatam Arashtre Rajanyaham Sureshavhyati Vyadi Maharatho Jayatam Dogdhi Dhenuhu Vodhanadvan Asu Saptihi Purandhiryosha Jishnorateshta Sabeyo Yuva Asya Yajamanasya Viro Jayatam Nikame Nikame Naha Padjanyo Na Varshato Palavatyo Na Voshadayaha Pachyantam Yogakshemo Naha Kalpetam Om Shanti 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 Om Vang Me Manasi Pratisthita Mano Me Vachi Pratisthita Mavira Vidma Yedi Vedasya Anista Shrutam Me Ma Prahasi Ranena Dhite Na Ahoratran Sandadam Yarutam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu mamavatu vaktaramavatu vaktaram Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Thank you very much, Vasan sir. Appreciate very much. Ravindra Garu, please, Sangeeta.
नारायण ते नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारद सन्नुत नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारद सन्नुत नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो मुरहर भवहर मुकुंद माधव मुरहर भवहर मुकुंद माधव गरुड़ गमन पंकजनाभ मुरहर भवहर मुकुंद माधव गरुड़ गमन पंकजनाभ परम पुरुष भवबंध विमोचना परम पुरुष भवबंध विमोचना नर मृग शरीर नमो नमो परम पुरुष भवबंध विमोचना नर मृग शरीर नमो 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 नर मृग शरीर नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारद सन्नुत नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो जलधिशयन रविचंद्र विलोचन जलधिशयन रविचंद्र विलोचन जलरुह भवनुत चरणयुगा जलधिशयन रविचंद्र विलोचन जलरुह भवनुत चरणयुगा बलिबंधन गोपवधूवल्लभ बलिबंधन गोपवधूवल्लभ नलिनोदर ते नमो नमो बलिबंधन गोपवधूवल्लभ नलिनोदर ते नमो नमो नलिनोदर ते नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारद सन्नुत नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो आदिदेव सकलगम पूजित आदिदेव सकलगम पूजित यादव कुल मोहन रूप आदिदेव सकलगम पूजित यादव कुल मोहन रूप वेदोधर श्री वेंकटनाथ वेदोधर श्री वेंकटनाथ प्रियते नम वेदोधर श्री वेंकटनायक नाद प्रियते नमो 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 नाद प्रियते नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो नारद सन्नुत नमो नमो नारायण ते नमो नमो Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravindra, very much. Appreciate it very much. Nana, can you please introduce the speaker?
హరిచి హృదయం కొంచెం సేపు లేచినా.
Okay. Tanu, introduce yourself. Yeah, please.
So today we are having a wonderful presentation by Dr. Jayanti, and she is introduced to us by Aparna from Delhi, and then really she has been highly contributory to our Veda Adhyayana Kendra programs, and especially to Veda Ganga and lecture series. And she is the professor in the Delhi University, one of the colleges there, and that is about her. But she has been in touch with us, our programs and all that. And today I just requested her to talk on Yajnavalkya Maharshi, who is responsible to make the Yajurveda to get divided into Krishna and Shukla Yajurvedas. And actually, he was a very rebelling student to the Vaisampayana, as the story goes. And he was criticizing the Vaisampayana, the Guru himself. The students complained. So this Yajnavalkya Maharshi is not obedient and he's criticizing you and all that. Then the Guru became angry. He wanted that Yajnavalkya to spit out whatever learning of his that he has learned, and all that again was taken by other set of rishis in the form of the three birds and so on. So that's how the entire story of Yajnavalkya begins. And there are so many episodes, and Yajnavalkya Maharshi is the author of the Samhita, Shukla Yajurveda, Vajrasanaya Madhyandara Samhita, and other recensions also. Then we have got the Satapada Brahmana, and then we have got Yajnavalkya Smriti latest. So like that, we remember Yajnavalkya Maharshi as a very great inspirer, contributor, researcher, and guru to, as far as the Yajurveda department is concerned, in that trying to be practical. Yajurveda is a practical Veda, is a practical manual. So how best we can do Upasana and then get the experience and happiness, and ultimately. So he is really ocean by himself. And not my talking much about Yajnavalkya. I just request Dr. Jayanti to go on with her presentation. Later on, we have other professors. Rita Ji also is there from Atlanta, and all of you. And we'll have some really understanding and inspiration to start practicing the pathways given by these great Maharshis. Yajnavalkya, Valmiki Maharshi, and Annamacharya. So they are all not ordinary people. They are all our guides to make our life really to uplift and elevate ourselves into that. Thank you very much. Namo Yajnavalkyaya, Vedanta Gurave, Veda Gurave, Namaha. Now, Dr. Jayanti.
I would like to share my presentation. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Can I share the screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share. Yeah, if there is a way to keep the microphone closer so it can hear you, it's a little soft to hear you. Yeah, we can see the slides. Yes.
Yes. I'll start my presentation with the invocation of Guru Mantra. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Om Sri Gurave Namaha Abhyayami Stapayami Pujayami Dhyayami Tathato Namaskaram Karome. My pranam to one and all present here. Respected Professor C.L. Prabhakar, Director NBAK, Professor R.I. Ingalali, Professor of Philosophy, Karnataka University, Professor Rita Matthew, Atlanta, USA, and all distinguished professors present here, and the students of NBAK. My special and heartfelt gratitude and thanks to Professor Prabhakar to giving me a chance to share my ideas with the distinguished scholars present here. I'm going to discuss the profound teaching of one of the most renowned sages in the Vedic traditions, Yajnavalkya Maharshi. So it is a difficult task for me, but I'll try my best. So when we talk about the Indian philosophical traditions, the first thing comes to our mind is the Guru Sisya Parampara. And who is a guru here? Guru is a spiritual guide who dispels darkness and replaces with illumination. And Guru is one, and when I said Guru, is spiritual Guru, one who has engaged in a tremendous amount of penance. So these are my references from which I have developed my paper, my thought process. And when we talk about the Yajnavalkya Maharshi, especially his spiritual ideas, then certain things which I found is that the concept of prayers and shreyas, these are the two most important things. Any spiritual discourse, then Paravidya and Aparavidya, lower knowledge and higher knowledge. Then the concept like empathy, gratitude, and love, these are the major parameters which we find all Upanishadic discourse. And when it comes to moral principles, and then we think about the practice of yama and niyam, without which the spiritual learning is impossible. And then what are the follows of why Yajnavalkya is talking about the spiritual, giving us the spiritual learning? And is that the reason is that to establish a society of where Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is a family, and the concept of Atithi Deva Bhava, Bahujan Hita, and Bahujan Sikhaya. These are the major things which we find within the spiritual discourse of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. And so this is a slope which is already everyone knows. So this is the most important slope when we talk about Veda Upanishad. And Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasisyate. That is whole. This is the whole. From wholeness emerges wholeness. Wholeness coming from wholeness. Wholeness still remains. What is that wholeness? We are talking inside the Upanishad. That is the major question. And in fact, so the Rishi Parampara is a kind of very vast, rich, and complex parampara, and the contribution to the world from the all the Upanishad is the spiritualism. And who is a spiritual guru? The question comes: who is a spiritual guru? The guru is that rishi is a word that simply means a sage or a divine seer in general. The great sages of ancient India, who in deep states of meditation and through spiritual experimentation discovered the underlying fundamental truths of the universe, and whose teachings form the basis of spiritual culture of the ancient Vedic civilization. In more specific uses, the rishis are the divine being distinct from devas. So Yajnavalkya Maharshi stands as a towering figure in the pantheon, revered for his profound insights and philosophical acumen. His teachings, particularly those captured in the Brihadaranya Upanishad, are seminal works shaping Hindu spiritual thought. I just would like to make it something clear to is coming to my mind when I talk about spiritualism, is something which is very difficult to speak about unless you feel or experience that kind of thoughts. So that is what is a difficult task for me to speak about the spiritual philosophy of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. The Brihadaranya Upanishad, one of the principal Upanishads, features extensive dialogues where Yajnavalkya Rishi expounds on the nature of reality, the self, and the ultimate purpose of human existence. This presentation aims to explore the spiritual practices and moral disciplines that Yajnavalkya Maharshi advocated. By examining his dialogues and teachings, we seek to understand the pathways he recommended for achieving spiritual enlightenment and ethical living. This exploration will not only highlight the timeless wisdom of Yajnavalkya, but also provide practical insights into how these teachings can be integrated into modern life. As Professor Prabhakar sir has already mentioned about the text, major text associated with Yajnavalkya Maharshi, and mentioned a few Sukla Yajurved, Satpat Brahman, Brihadaranya Upanishad, Dharmasastra, then Yajnavalkya Smriti, etc. This is the thing which I find that unless we talk about two things and spiritualism is incomplete, and any kind of discourse or any kind of sustainable model in the society which we are looking for and which are missing in the present educational system is faith-based learning, and that is there within the Yajnavalkya's Maharshi's philosophy, and starts with the idea of the faith amongst the Rishi, Yajnavalkya Rishi, amongst the that Maitreyi, Adhyayana, and the Gargi, and the experiential learning. These two things are most important things, which can be give a kind of new direction to spiritual learning. And faith-based learning and experiential learning are two educational approach which can be distinct also, but also complementary, particularly in the context that aims to integrate spiritual development. And when I said experiential learning, it's not the experiential learning where the Western philosophers, specifically the empiricist Locke, Berkeley, Hume, they are talking about. Here, the experience means something which is called the intuitive experience. Here, the role of sense organs, mind is very limited, and the role of self is important, and that is called the spiritual knowledge. Why do we need a faith-based learning? Because it emphasizes moral ethical development according to spiritual principles. FBL, faith-based learning, focuses on character development, nurturing virtues like honesty, compassion, and service to others as defined by the faith tradition. And the readers specifically engage deeply with the spiritual text, which is missing in the contemporary context. So faith-based learning and experiential learning, when combined, offer a robust model that enhances academic and spiritual knowledge and fosters character development, practical skills, and a deeper understanding of how to apply one's faith in everyday life. So taking these things into import mind, so my paper is going to see that what exactly spiritualism is all about. So there is a problem in my understanding that when we talk about spiritualism and morality, these two together, certainly there is a problem, and this problem has been started long back within the Upanishadic study. So here we are focusing on the spiritualism of the Upanishad, and the Upanishads are the production of highest human wisdom and are considered most valuable treasures of the world. It comes under the Shruti tradition, which is eternal and authoritative, Studying the Upanishad has been a great inspiration because it allows us to define our existence. And again, existence here means the spiritual existence. The spiritualism of Indian thought, started with the Upanishadic knowledge of self-consciousness. Consciousness as the spiritual substance played a significant role in spiritual awakening. It is also the ground for material experience of the world. So there are so many confusion taking spiritualism into account, and that's why it is important to define what spirituality or spiritualism is all about. Because many times we mix with religion, and many times we mix with also some other things with materialism also. And that's why I thought this quotation of Sri Aurobindo is very important to understand the spirituality, what exactly means. Spirituality is in its essence an awakening to the inner reality of our being, to a spirit, self, and soul that is other than our mind, life, and body, an inner aspiration to know, to feel, to be that, to enter into contact with the greater reality beyond and pervading the universe which inhabits our being, to be in communion with it and union with it, and a turning conversation, a transformation of our whole being as a result of the aspiration, the contact, the union, a growth or waking into a new becoming or new being, a new self, new nature. So this is what very important to understand the spiritual dimension, what exactly it does, and how it changes the entire thinking process of your life and give you the kind of growth within yourself and helps you to transcend the limitations and helps you to transcend the narrowness, ideological barriers, and to create a space and transcend the ego and anger and create a space for peaceful living and the coexistence. That is what the Yajnavalkya's contribution to the entire world. And when we go through the Yajnavalkya Rishi, basically these are my understanding through various sources. So we find there is, when we talk about spiritual experience, it's something which is very difficult to get and realize, and may not be possible, as Sankaracharya also says, that it may not be possible to take in this one life. Maybe several baths is needed to remove that materialistic desire or the prayers. And that is how that it is a process or stages of development, as we find in Mandukya also, when we talk about waking state, dreaming state, deep sleep, then Turiya, and the focus is on the state of bliss. And that is how the Yajnavalkya Rishi, when he is having the dialogue with King Janak or Maitreyi or Gargi, so he is giving us that there are 5 different stages of spiritual experience. According to Brihadaranya Upanishad, in realizing the self, in mystically apprehending the glory of the self within us as though we are distinct from him. So fasting, as I said in my uh, model, or that faith-based model, so we have to somewhere believe on the system or believe that something is there and that self is there, and that self makes us realize that I'm distinct from the self. The knowledge which is having with the self is not with me. So I'm just a kind of body mind complex jiva, which is different from the self. So that is first thing we have to realize. Then second, another process from Vedaranya Upanishad tells us that the being which is called I within us must be identified with the self that is realized. We must experience that we are the very self. We are neither bodily, nor the sensuous, nor the intellectual. We are essentially identical to the pure self. So you find a kind of absolute idealism and In fact, no other system except Advaita Vedanta and Upanishadic theory give us the idea that self is entirely distinct from the mind and the body. And once we realize that state, and then we can make a distinction between the body, mind, and the sense organs on the one side and the self from the other side. So that is what the second stage we come to, that we are not the body, mind, and senses, but we are the self. And then third is that there is no difference between Atman and Brahman. So once I realize that my jiva is my self and there is no difference, there is no ego, I have transcended the limitation, then I realize that I am the self. And once I realize the Aham Brahmasmi, then I can also extend and understand the significance of Brahman. And then I find there is no difference between the what is inside and what is outside. So there is no difference between Atman and the Brahman. So that is also disappeared. So I can understand that the word and then Sarvam Khadu Idam Brahma. If I am the self and the self is the absolute, then it follows syllogistically that I am the absolute. If I and thou are equally the absolute, it follows that everything we see in this world, mind and nature, the self, not self, equally constitute the absolute. And coming to that state is a very difficult, fact, impossible. Why I said that it is a most difficult topic for me, and I'm really sorry. I have very limited knowledge about the Sanskrit. So if any kind of mistakes, so I'm extremely sorry for that. But my understanding when I read the Upanishadic thoughts, then I find the problem of relation between metaphysics and morality has much been a debated problem from very ancient times. And my understanding goes, then I'll say that Yajnavalkya Maharshi, the focus is on spiritualism as the metaphysics and rather than the morality, because which has a limited sphere. And in fact, the spiritualism includes the morality and because when we talk about Western ethics, it has a very narrow dimension, understanding the reality. And what is moral may not be spiritual, and what is spiritual may not be moral. And that's why making a distinction is very difficult, and taking together is also a very difficult task, in fact. So in comparison to this morality and mysticism in relation to metaphysics and morality create a less important problem. It is extremely difficult to decide which to play the primary role in the discussion of the development of man's consciousness as a whole. However, to a kind of bringing a kind of parity, so metaphysics, morality, and mysticism are inseparable from each other in the interest of the highest spiritual development in the philosophy of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. And that is another thing which I found within the spiritual discourse and the moral discourse of Yajnavalkya's philosophy. The first time there is a kind of uh, uh, involvement of the uh, spiritual within the spiritual and philosophical discourse. The women took part in a philosophical dialogue. And in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we meet three different types of women. Katyayani, the woman of the world, who is only once mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka. Maitri, a spiritual woman, a fit consort to the philosopher Yajnavalkya. Gargi, the Upanishadic suffragette, was fully equipped in the art of intellectual warfare and dared to wrangle with Yajnavalkya even at the court of King Janak, where some great philosophers are assembled. Gargi questions Yajnavalkya on the nature of reality and the underlying support of the universe. She inquires about the fundamental principle that sustains the cosmos. Yajnavalkya's responses highlight the concept of Brahman as the ultimate reality beyond physical and metaphysical elements. The debate showcases Garge's profound intellect and a quest for knowledge. So we'll basically take because of the time, and I want to have some discussion also because some of my ideas are also not very clear. So that is why I have taken only the Gargi Maitreyi dialogue with Yajnavalkya and some fundamental issues which has been discussed within the dialogue. My Yajnavalkya told Maitreyi, I'm going to renounce this life. Let me make a final settlement between you and Katyayani. So I would like to add one point here that you will see that when we talk about any kind of spiritual discourse, so that should be a coordination between the speaker and the hearer, and which was there within the Yajnavalkya, Gargi, Maitreyi discourse and Katyayani. So the acceptance was there, the faith was there, and so that is why the recognition of the ideas, and that was there, which is missing in the today's higher education or any kind of education. So that is why what is important to have a faith with the gurus, and then you can have a spiritual training will possible, maybe possible. So then Maitreyi said, if indeed, sir, this whole earth full of wealth being belonged to me, would I be immortal through that? No, replied Yajnavalkya, your life would be just like that of people who have plenty. There is no hope of mortality through wealth. So that is also a kind of, when we analyze philosophically, we find a kind of anti-hedonistic stand has been taken by Yajnavalkya. So that means when hedonism stands for that pleasure is the ultimate reality. And in Indian tradition, we make a distinction between pleasure, happiness, and the bliss. And the whole idea of Yajnavalkya Maharshi is to establish the immortality through the state of bliss and happiness. So that kind of may not be accepting the ethical theories given by J.S. Mill and also by Kant, but by accepting the some way the virtue theory of Aristotle can be seen within the Yajnavalkya Maharshi spiritual discourse. So then further questions raised by Maitreyi and solving her problem, Yajnavalkya said, verily a husband is not dear because he is a husband, but because of the self a husband is dear. Verily, a wife is not dear because she is a wife, but because of the self, a wife is dear. Verily, sons are not dear because they are sons, but because of the self, sons are dear. So on and so forth. Then finally, Yajnavalkya said, it is the self that ought to be seen, ought to be heard, reflected on, and ought to be meditated upon by seeing, hearing, reflecting on, and knowing the self. All this is known. And that can be the method through which Travarvan and Nididhyasana one may reach to that state. So that for Yajnavalkya Maharshi, the self is the everything, and he has given a simile to justify what he is saying is right. He said that now as a lump of salt thrown in water dissolves and can be taken out again, but wherever we taste the water, it is salty. Even so, Maitreyi, the great, endless, infinity, reality is what pure intelligence. This purity has to be understood very carefully because that when we realize the self, and self is a kind of witness consciousness, and as we see in Advaita Vedanta, and it's the purity they are talking about, because once you take the idealistic approach and make it self as a pure, and and throughout uh, the process of transformation, the self retained its purity. But if we take the realistic approach like Nyaya and the Jainism, Mimamsa, so then there is a problem of understanding the purity of the self. And that is why the Upanishad make it very clear that self, which we are talking about, it is something which is very pure. This self comes out as a separate entity from these elements, and with their destruction, that individuality also is destroyed. After attaining oneness, there is no more consciousness. This is what I say, my dear Maitreyi. Then Maitreyi said, Sir, you have bewildered me by your statements. Yajnavalkya replied, I have said nothing that you should bewilder you. This self is indeed imperishable and indestructible, my dear. And in fact, Yajnavalkya Maharshi has given so many uh, things to define what self is all about. This conversation emphasizes the concept that ultimate happiness and immortality cannot be achieved through material possession, but through understanding and realizing the true self, which is one with the ultimate reality. So the purpose, whole idea of rethinking or reinterpreting the Upanishadic thought and the Rishi's thought process is to bring a change within the society and bring a change within the people's mind, because the problem of this world is the problem of not realizing or not accepting many things in the spiritual terms. And once we accept the spiritual philosophy of Yajnavalkya Mercy, many of our personal problems and social problems resolve. So that is why it is this spiritual craving for immortality that distinguishes mental states, the sages of the Upanishad, from our own. Yet this desire for immortality is no mere desire for personal survival, continuing the enjoyment of pleasures under newer and happier conditions of life, whether in this world or in heaven. The quest for immortality, as it is found in the Upanishad, is in no sense a yearning for personal immortality, the decayless, diseaseless, deathless existence of the individual with his body in full vigor of youth. Neither is it the desire for a bodiless existence of a self, fond of sensual joys and sense gratification and fettered by all the needs and necessities of mundane relations and mundane gratification. So the whole idea of immortality within the philosophical discourse of the Upanishad is to establish a state of bliss and peace, and to establish a coexistence, unity and harmony in the society. Generally, we think that when we talk about immortality, we generally brings moksha into account. So that is one thing. But the second aspect of the immortality, the idea of the whole immortality, is to make you strong and to understand that you are not limited. You are an infinite soul, and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, provided you follow the principles of spiritualism given by the rishis. This quest for immortality is identical with the quest for highest self, the highest truth and reality, the highest Brahman. It is the perception and realization of the inner spring of her life and the inmost spirituality of man, as he is within himself beyond the range of sense of discursive thought. So again and again, you find some of the things uh, I'm just, because of the time which I want to say will missed. So there is a kind of neti method which Yajnavalkya has introduced to understand the concept of indescribable Brahman. And by stating the Brahman is not this, he directs seekers to go beyond all empirical description and conceptual frameworks to understand the ultimate reality. This approach encourages direct experiential realization rather than intellectual understanding. There is a problem here understanding Yajnavalkya Maharshi's spiritual discourse. The whole of the that when we go for the any yes. Yeah.
Please continue.
Yajnavalkya discussed the yes, sir. Yajnavalkya discussed the doctrine of reincarnation and karma, explaining how action in one life affect future lives. These teachings emphasize the ethical dimensions of spiritual practice and the importance of living in a righteous life. Yajnavalkya stressed the importance of self-realization and inner knowledge over external rituals and sacrifices. He taught that true liberation comes from understanding the nature of the self and its unit with Brahman rather than through the ritualistic practice. I have taken only one question of the Yajnavalkya Gargi debate is one of the most stimulating discourses found in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Gargi asked the question to Yajnavalkya that which is above the heavens and below the earth, which is between heaven and earth, as well as the earth, which is called past, present, and future. Across what is that oven, wrap, and woof? Yajnavalkya said, O Gargi is woven in the ether. In what then is the ether woven, wrap, and woof? Yajnavalkya said to Gargi, the knowers of the Brahman declare that it is woven in the imperishable. That is imperishable, O Gargi, is unseen. What is the seer is unheard. What is the hearer is unthought. What is the thinker is unknown. What is the knower? There is no other seer but this. There is no other hearer but this. There is no other thinker but this. There is no other knower but this. On this imperishable, O Gargi, is the ether woven wrap and how beautifully the spiritual thought of Yajnavalkya has been discussed within the dialogue debate between Gargi and Yajnavalkya. So if we analyze the Gargi-Yajnavalkya debate, we find a regressive method. So there are several questions from many successive questions. Every new question carrying us behind the previous questions. Gargi took Yajnavalkya from question to question, asking him what was the support of water, and Yajnavalkya answered it was air, and so forth. Gargi carried Yajnavalkya to the reign of Brahman. But when Gargi asked him again what lay in the world of Brahman itself, Yajnavalkya stops her and checks the progress of the questionnaire in the only appropriate way. He said, do not, O Gargi, question too much, lest your head should fall off. You are questioning too much about a deity whom we should not ask too much. And that was also needed to establish the absolute reality. So interestingly, what we find in the spiritual discourse of Yajnavalkya Maharshi, and interestingly, we find that he has never rejected the phenomenal activism by establishing the spiritual activism, and he has never rejected the prayers or the phenomenal activism. And there we can perhaps discuss the moral principles of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. So if we go through many of the Upanishad, but just I have highlighted one Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the spiritual activism when we said, so this theory believes that Atma is the only truth. It is stated in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that one who lived a peaceful life of self-control, of cessation from activity, and of patient suffering, having collected himself, saw the Atman within himself, saw everything as verily the Atman, he will cease to have any power over him, for he has overcome all evil, evil, free from impurity, free from doubt. He has become properly entitled to the dignity of a Brahman. So this whole idea of understanding or uh, realizing the spiritual philosophy is something which is unique and provided if somebody practiced, and certainly you can get that state, not even the state of absolute, but at least some state where there is no more desire and there is an acceptance or concept of aparigraha, as you will find a kind of theory in Jain philosophy, a state of detachment within the family and within the society where you are living. Many things you can transcend, and why you are doing this for your own peace and for your own state of bliss. That is very essential, and that is what the spiritualism is all about, and or spiritualism of the Upanishad is all about. So when it comes to the phenomenal activism, it takes into account the phenomenal good as a part of the moral idea. The moral good may not be considered as the suman banam, but the worldly good is recognized. In Swetasatar Upanishad claims that make us not suffer in our babies or in our sons, make us not suffer in lives or in cows or in horses, kill not our powerful warriors, O Rudra. Say, may we offer to thee our oblations forever and ever. Even the great idealistic philosopher Yajnavalkya, when he went to the court of King Janak and was asked to as to whether he desired wealth and cattle or victory in controversy, Janak, emperor of Vidya, took his seat when came Yajnavalkya. He told him, Yajnavalkya, what has brought you here to have some animals or to hear some subtle questions? Asked the king Janak. Yajnavalkya said he wanted both. He wanted the cows along with their gold coin as well as victory in the argumentative battle with the other philosophers in Janak's court. So, in philosophy, if we analyze, but not exactly, I can apply this to Yajnavalkya. But in Greek philosophy, if we have a kind of this kind of debate, or so then there is a problem, and people analyze, understand it in terms of Yajnavalkya as a sophist. But Yajnavalkya Maharshi has made a stand very clear. The apology that Yajnavalkya offered for his conduct was that he was enjoined by his father not to take away any wealth without having imparted spiritual instruction. This is clear from Yajnavalkya's desire, both material as well as spiritual good. Possibly he wanted to set an example by showing that the consideration of external good cannot be entirely ignored even by the idealist. And that makes his stand maybe closer to realistic position. Indeed, there cannot be any physical scale for the measurement of spiritual values. The bliss of self-realization is entirely of its kind, absolutely sui generis. Then we have come across, as I said, that maybe close to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, the concept of virtue. We find three kinds of virtue in the Brihadaranya Upanishad. The Devas, the Asuras, and the humans approached Prajapati for instruction. To each Prajapati gave the same syllable, da, which they interpreted according to their nature. The Devas understood it as the metta, self-control, the humans as datta, give, and the Asuras, the Yadvam, compassion. Thus, this story underscores the importance of self-control, giving, and compassion as universal virtues interpreted by different wings according to their needs. And this can be related the three qualities of Sankhya philosophy, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And also, these three things are present with each human being unless and until we reach to the state of absolute. And then the final thing, which is very important, why do we need spiritual awakening? And spiritual awakening is often driven by a thirst for truth and wisdom. And here the truth is the truth of the self, the Brahman, It involves questioning sometimes the conventional beliefs, societal norms, seeking deeper insights into the nature of reality, and expanding one's understanding of the universe and human existence. Spiritual awakening empowers the individuals to awaken to their true potential, discover their authentic selves. It involves recognizing and honoring one's unique gifts, talents, strengths, and living in alignment with one's deepest values, aspirations. So, what is important that it is the one philosophy that I will suggest to everybody that if they follow in their life, and especially when we talk about the developmental model, in any form of developmental model can be established only when there is peace and there is no health issues are not there, and there is no stress and there is no ego, and there we look for the what's of the thought process of the Yajnavalkya Rishi, and that is only possible. The sustainable model can be established within the society through the spiritual awakening of the Upanishadic philosophy. And that is what we can see that how bold how powerful Yajnavalkya Maharshi and how confident he was when he said to Janaki that I want both. And that kind of wisdom and that kind of infinity one has to require and speak the truth, and is another most important thing of the spiritual discourse. So, spiritual awakening is a deeply personal and transformative journey that can bring profound changes in individuals' life, whether driven by a search for meaning, inner peace, connection, healing, wisdom, empowerment, or service. Spiritual awakening offers the opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and the realization of one's highest state. And this spiritual sadhana as an evolutionary process is gradual from the lower to the higher levels. It is the movement not only from the outer to the inner, but also from the lower to the higher, from the physical earthly body and the sensory life. The mind slowly rises into the psychological and rational fields of understanding, and then that it becomes spiritual in its perspective and vision. Externally, there is a gradual withdrawal from the love of physical objects, attachment to things, to the values that are hidden in things. You see, Yajnavalkya's philosophy, although several thousands years old, still retains its relevance and continues to guide spiritual seekers by basically negating this material world as illusory and asserting that the true nature of each individual is identical to the one supreme, infinite, blissful consciousness. It is progressive doctrine that doesn't distinguish based on superficial differences like religion, race, gender, caste, class, nationality, and etc. So it has its contemporary relevance, lies in the application of this Yajnavalkya, address the challenges of human experience, stress, anxiety, existential dilemma, and a sense of disconnection which you find in today's consumeristic society. By engaging in self-inquiry and recognizing the impermanence of external achievements, individuals can cultivate a deeper understanding of their true nature. This, in turn, paves the way for a more authentic and meaningful life, one driven by inner wisdom rather than external expectation. Moreover, the emphasis on interconnectedness and the recognition of the universal self in these teachings can foster a sense of compassion, empathy, and environmental consciousness in the face of contemporary global challenges. The call for detachment from material pursuit aligns with the growing awareness of the limitations of consumerism and the pursuit of external validations as a source of lasting uh, happiness. This is the conclusion. In conclusion, the teachings of Yajnavalkya Maharshi, as illustrated in Vedaranya Upanishad, offer a profound insight into the nature of the ultimate reality. Through his dialogue with Maitreyi Gargi, Yajnavalkya Maharshi elucidates essential spiritual truths and ethical principles. The virtues of Daya, Dharma, and Dana are central to his teachings, emphasizing the importance of compassion, self-restraint, and charity in the pursuit of spiritual growth and ethical living. Yajnavalkya Maharshi is undoubtedly the greatest philosopher of the Upanishadic times, who, by his consistent philosophical idealism and by his thoroughgoing practical Atmanism, may give lessons to many a thinker of the present day. As we reflect on Yajnavalkya's Maharshi's wisdom, let us strive to incorporate these timeless virtues into our lives, fostering a deeper understanding of the self and our connection to the larger reality. I end my uh, presentation with this shlok. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhave. May all be happy, may all be free from disabilities, may all behold what is auspicious, may none suffer from sorrow. Thank you all. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful. So, in fact, in our Nada Adhyayana Kendras, we have the series also in waves. We have had talks on Ishavasya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Kathopanishad, and other Upanishads like that, and trying to understand and unravel some of the important guidelines, teachings, and spiritual things. In fact, we have got our Charanji, who has made Dr. Shashitiwari to give us a discourse on Kathopanishad and Mundaka Upanishad and Mandukya. And well, there are so many Upanishads like that. We are, after having completed Aitareya Upanishad and other Upanishad, we are now in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In every Friday we have been doing. Now, today's talk by Dr. Jayanti simply a lodestar light, so that people can go deeper, not depending upon the superficial. Moreover, there are 6 chapters in that Upanishad. Now we are just going with Munikanda only, because as Dr. Jayanti said, we have to understand the virtues of Daya, Dhanam, and all these 3 Ds we have. And 3 Ds we should understand. Also try to understand the nature of self and also ultimate reality. People have no time. But lectures by professors like Dr. Jayanti or Engavalli or Shashi Tiwari or even Charanji sometimes. So all of them are trying to reach people, whoever are lucky, and try to give them a kind of spiritual quest and thirst that their life will be really meaningful. And Yajnavalkya Maharshi is Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Yajnavalkyam Mahamunim. Like that, you can, though it goes to Sankara, even before Sankara, we got the Yajnavalkya. Though this Neti Neti Vada and all these things, trying to see, we have so many Vadas which are popular in later on by the Matacharyas, Shankara, Madhva, Ramanuja. See, as Valmiki said in Ramayana, nothing new. Everybody is trying to explore and repeat and try to understand for themselves. That's what Mahidhara says, as our Ingalili has been good student of Mahidhara's commentary. And he says, Nija Paropakaraya Atmechanaya cha. So Mahidhara said, why are you writing commentary for Sukradevada Mantra? It's only Atmechana, that is trying to know for myself the introspection I can make, and Paropakara. See, everybody has been endowed with some amount of intelligence and zeal and all that. So that has got to be used to the maximum extent. and opportunities have to also come up depending upon our own adrushtam or luck and fortune. So today we have got wonderful opportunity to be able to know deeper, and moreover, women also have got a wonderful. In fact, it seems that Yajnavalkya was much vexed, asked that Gargi not to put more questions because see, if you keep on diving deeper and deeper, you don't find answer. And answers are all, but actually it is said the nature has all answers and nature has no questions. But we have questions, but nature will answer. That is bhayakrut bhayanasanaha and punyakrut punyasasanaha. So like that, we have all these important suggestions. And today, in fact, she could talk more on the entire comprehensive way of the how Yajnavalkya comes out with thoughts and wisdom upon putting forth that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It's one of the important Upanishads. And I'm so happy in the series of Upanishadic talks where Vedanta is required, and today's Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is really contributory, and we have to open up our eyes, not close the eyes and see. We could see that. Not my talking much. Dr. Engelal is there, who has done good study on Upanishads. He's a philosopher. He's a D.Litt scholar in philosophy, heading department, and rich experience and all that. So before him, I have nothing to speak. I just request Dr. Engelal to just put forth some ideas and comments on additional things to Dr. Jayanti's talks. Dr. Engelal?
Namaste. Is it audible to you? No.
Yeah.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I should express my heartfelt feelings and sincere thanks to the learned scholar, say this evening here in Berlin, Europe. And I really enjoyed the talk on, say, Maharshi Yajnavalkya's Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, because her voice is even, say, Yajnavalkya's message is, it is immortal. And we have got that the channel of listening from the voice of the learned scholar Jayanti Sahooji. Now, I hope I may take about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to make some significant remarks. 10 minutes?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Because I have planned when the learned scholar and our Puja Prabhakarji asked to join this program, I immediately remembered that he is a great scholar in Sukla Yajurveda because his PhD is in Sukla Yajurveda and he has also published part of it as philosophy and sociology of this Yajurveda. And I'm not just going to summarize what the learned scholar has covered, vast field, focusing on the single text of that gigantic person of wisdom, and he's almost, say, Yajnavalkya's wisdom is immortal, and therefore we have got opportunity to listen, study in our Swadhyaya. She has covered, interpreted, and tried to reconstruct some of her ideas and convictions, even on comparative lines, making use of modern Western empiricism like that. And here I would like to add my encouraging remark that Maharshi Yajnavalkya is known for his magnum opus Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Shatapatha Brahman, and the last Adhyaya, 40th Adhyaya of Shukla Yajurveda Madhyandina Samhita or Karno Samhita, there is a Ishavasya Upanishad that is called Samhita Upanishad. And in Samhita Upanishad, Maharshi gives very explicit criterion for the importance of the self-knowledge. And recently, the highest authorities in modern education, like UNESCO, trying to find out the text to spread spiritual education through the chosen text of philosophy. In that direction, I am working. And here, Yajnavalkya Maharshi, I would like to just take one Sanskrit श्लोक from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. आत्मा वा अरे द्रष्टव्यः श्रोतव्यः मंतव्यः निदिध्यासितव्यः. When he was addressing to his own, say, Dharmapatni, the Maitra Devi, and there is a sort of logical sequence. In this context, I am very happy to remind to my hearers or myself to recollect it that, say, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is translated by one Swamiji of Advaita Ashram, Calcutta, and I think Madhvananda Swamiji, and there is a very scholarly introduction by Kuppuswami Shastrikar of Madras, and he himself has established Kuppuswami Shastri Institute. But say, I am very happy to notice in the course of the lecture of the learned scholar that he is also aware of the logical approach of the Yajnavalkya Maharshi, and she has used a syllogism also. Say Atman is Brahman, and she deduces the conclusion like that. The Atman is Brahman. There is the Mahavakya. We have 4 Mahavakyas. Say they are called Vedic Mahavakyas. Rigveda has the Mahavakya Prajnanam Brahma in Aitreya Upanishad. Aham Brahmasmi in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad related to Shukla Yajurveda. There is no distinction between Shukla Yajurveda, Krishna Yajurveda, but it is a Mahavakya of Yajurveda. And then Samaveda has got the another Tattvamasi is another important Upanishad. It appears in Chandogya Upanishad. And the lastly, another Mahavakya is Ayam Atma Brahma, Mandukya Upanishad of Atharvana Veda. And here the Aham Brahmasmi. And of course, this is a very important proposition, a cardinal sentence, the Mahavakya. Adi Shankaracharya has developed, say, a highly original semantics, that is a Jihad Lakshana, Ajihad Lakshana, Jihad Ajihad Lakshana. Without the help of Adi Shankaracharya, there are so many ways to confuse, say, our excellent texts like the Upanishadic Vakyas. Say, Swayam Devadatta, like that, he has given so many models, and he is the eternal guide for anybody who is interested in the study of the Upanishads, not only just for academic purpose, but to realize the summum bonum or what is our spiritual goal. Otherwise, the knowledge is incomplete, and to that extent, understanding of that Mahavakya, Aham Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Atma Asmi, like that. Say there, she has also say Maharshi Yajnavalkya is say a Purna Jnani, and he doesn't reject, say, because in the Madhukanda there are propositions. Say the Prithvi Madhu, Ayu Madhu, Akasha Madhu. Madhu means say honey. And he has given such a status. And today, now we have got in modern times the ecological awareness, appreciating the importance of our earth and all that one. And we get excellent guidelines from the Ishavasya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The ideas or the thoughts, the illuminating advice given by the Maharshi Yajnavalkya. And here the learned speaker I appreciate very much for her efforts, and not only giving some sort of say a clerical work or some sort of even say to call herself as a learned scholar. She has got some insights to introduce to her best of ability to the hearer our say the tradition, excellent spiritual tradition. She has got a tremendous concern for the spiritual tradition, not at the outset of not at the cost of rejecting the material part, because the material and the spiritual, and incidentally she has referred to our Adhunika Rishi Maharshi Arvindo's idea about the spiritual development in that. And Maharshi Aurobindo, he never rejected the matter. Even Adi Shankaracharya has not rejected. the matter, because he has given us the criterion of Viveka, Atmanatma Viveka, and he has given some three-valued logic, Vyavaharika Satta, Paramarthika Satta, and Pratibhashika Satta. So in the background of Arvinda Maharshi, Vivekananda, and Adi Shankaracharya, we try to understand Yajnavalkya Maharshi, and we harvest the spiritual fruits from the fields of Yajnavalkya Maharshi, because he was concerned not only with the cow's milk and the golden coins on the horns of the cows, but he wanted to test the audience, say whether they are after the spiritual wealth or not. So he balancing personality of the spiritual wealth and the material wealth, and then going above the both, or to achieve the summum bonum, or what say in our tradition called the highest realization of the self as the Brahman. So in the coming to the concluding part, now we are living in the modern world compared to those ancient days. Of course, Yajnavalkya, Janaka Maharaj, and others, they lived, say, in the, say, long ago, several thousand years before. Now the time has changed. Now the question arises, say, is it relevant today? And she has tried her level best to make it more relevant to the present day situations. And I have a point to add. Say, I have been thinking about the program of spiritual education trust at the global level. And this is necessary because the modern scholars, especially in the Adi Shankaracharya tradition like Maharshi Mahesh Yogi and elsewhere, some of the Western syllabuses, especially in Europe and America, they have started teaching philosophy, and even the forms of the yoga. Say, our thanks should go to our beloved Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, who himself is the yogi and is trained in the background of the Indian tradition like the Upanishads, and he's inspired by Swami Vivekananda's works and so on. So now, say, both East and West are interested in the spiritual development. Slowly, they are inculcating and injecting these spiritual values in modern education, and hope, say, the works of Yajnavalkya Maharshi. And of course, there is also Yoga Yajnavalkya, and there is also Yajnavalkya Smriti. It is a source of moral and spiritual values. Therefore, her talk based on the text primarily, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and it is also quite relevant to take for further development that basic text about which Mahatma Gandhi has a high regard for, the Ishavasya Upanishad. And the last chapter is Ishavasya Upanishad, that is the Samhita Upanishad. It is admired by Indian scholars, Western scholars. It is a sort of, it gives the eternal message. There we get a criteria for a jnani in the Ishavasya Upanishads, and Adi Shankaracharya goes to the extent of saying that even devas without the knowledge of the self are the asuras. Therefore, the importance of the self-knowledge and the self and the Brahman, they are identical in what sense? Once again, Adi Shankaracharya's semantic methodology is very important. Say he gives, say, what is this Jahad Lakshana, Ajay Lakshana, Jahad Ajay Lakshana, Swayam Devadatta. The Devadatta seen long back in the Pathshala, and Devadatta is the Grahastha, is the same person. So when the Jivatman and the Paramatman, when they say the identity, whether it is absolute identity, partial, whatever it may be, but at the individual level, there is a scope. Especially, I have been practicing transcendental meditation for the last 50 years. I had been to Rishikesh to learn it, to Shankaracharya Nagar. And with the rich background of, say, my Vedanta, because in our Kannada culture, there is one Nijaguna Shiva Yogi, and he studied his life is similar to Lord Buddha's life. So he was a king nearby the Mysore place, and then he renowned the world. He wrote, there is called Paramartha Gita. He says that, say, Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Vara Samadhavane Kannada Malapil, means the dialogue between Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya. I am trying to put it in the Kannada language. That is called Paramartha Gita in our say Kannada philosophy. And then say Kaivalya Paddhati, like that he has given. So here, Maitri Yajnavalkya. This is the Maitra Devi. He is better off. He is the divine partner. Was quite encouraging because she used to put some searching questions to Maharshi, and then it is like a that Upanishad Gita, and Maharshi Yajnavalkya was inspired by the questions of the Maitra Devi, and he was able to give say very profound spiritual insights. And not only that one, he was helping the Maitra Devi to realize the spiritual values because there was a commitment between the two. That great noble lady renounced the material wealth and followed her beloved husband, and that influenced and impressed that ideal noble husband that he should help spiritually her wife. So we should Yajnavalkya means we should not forget Maitra Devi, and Garge's position is another thing. And she gives us sort of logical orientation because whenever I hear the name of the Garge, I immediately remember saying in the Nyaya Bhashya that is originally given by our Chanakya Maharshi. Pradipaha sarva vidyanam, upaya sarva karmanam, asraya sarvadharanam, anvikshiki vidya, nyaya vidya, nyaya shastram, like that. So even in Aristotle in Western tradition, he says that logic is the science of science and art of arts. We should not forget it. Say to my own personal experience, say about few years back, I received email from the authorities of primary and secondary education from Great Britain, England, and they expected some suggestions to improve the education in England. And I just kept quiet for some time. Again, I received the email. I thought that I should give some uh, constructive reply because the British people are responsible to spread their education throughout the world. And in that way, I somewhat abstained from myself, but I was encouraged. But I gave some two simple suggestions. One, the study of logic. And here, even that our great scholar Kuppuswamy Shastri says that, say, Yajnavalkya Maharshi himself used Gautama's logic, Nyaya Shastra there. And here I suggested that, say, let secondary school students study logic because logic is necessary for mathematics. And the brain and the heart of modern the artificial intelligence or the computer science comes from the contribution of modern philosophers like my teachers, Wittgenstein in Cambridge University, and again many mathematicians like George Boole is there, the British philosopher. So, and again George Boole and those who have contributed to mathematical of the two-valued logic like that. And again, they also request them to introduce the scientific method. It's a form of inductive logic. Logic has two sides, deductive logic and inductive logic. She has used the word syllogism because I taught logic in the college for about more than 10 years. And our Swami Sivanandaji of Rishikesh says that who teaches logic or science of truth for 10 years and he very easily he is the custodian of truth, something like that he says. That is the encouraging word from Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh. So scientific method is necessary for at the secondary level because they study science, they do not know scientific method. For this reason, I suggested this idea. And they learn arithmetic, but they do not know the logic of deductive logic of mathematics. So I made these two. So at the global level, that because Maharshi Yajnavalkya, basically he was a logician. Prior to even Gautama, he had that logic because even in a Rigveda or Yajurveda, we find that cosmic intelligence. What is this Ruta Tattva ultimately? Say it is the locus or the center of intelligence at different levels, at individual level, at cosmic level. So in the very vast level, at even and above all, it is transcendent level. That's why, say, even in the Rigveda, we get some sloka there. What is that? Rucham. Say, the Ruchatattva, the Ruk Samhita. They are established there in the transcendental world and in the form of the Nada, the Shabda Tattva. Say, we enjoyed the talk of Bradhanak Upanishad through the scholarly voice of our learned scholar, Sahoo ji. And I say, wish her all the best in her academic career. And she will give more spiritual education to the audience uh, in the coming days and the years. So, Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much to the Veda Dhyayana Kendra authorities.
Thank you, Dr. Engalali. See, so many, some names we heard, but now we know some details about it. And also, your thought that there should be some diploma course on Vivekananda or some
Yeah.
such late contemporary people who have contributed my large, so that Vivekananda name is attractive to all people. And
Yes.
so the moment we mention these names, young people become curious. And so I think there must be some kind of good move in the Vivekananda Center, people who are connected to this, to introduce a good study of Vivekananda and all other Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and all that. That's one order. On the other hand, also we should go to the earlier Vedic Vedopanishad and so on, so that people will come to know something that they have got to do apart from their own busy schedules, going with the money, comfort, and happiness. Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Rita also is there from Atlanta. She's also in the same line, spiritual line and academic line, and she has so much good ideas. So she loves that order of the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa order. And
Okay.
she will just propose vote of thanks and her comments for the present talk. Dr. Rita, please.
Pranam Guruji. It was such a wonderful, wonderful session today. I am completely grateful, filled with gratitude to Dr. Jayanti Sahoo, Dr. Inglali for taking us all in the right path. We need more talks along these lines. In fact, you mentioned Swami Vivekananda ji, and I was going to start my concluding remarks with a incidents from Paramahansa Ramakrishna. And we are concerned that our world is materialistic. But even in those days, in 1800s, this idea was there of materialism. And even before that, our Hindu philosophy has, of course, identified materialism through the Charvak philosophy. Ramakrishna Paramahansa questioned Bankim Chandra Chakravarti. He's a very famous scholar who wrote I think, Vande Mataram or something. And he was a materialist. Paramahansa asked him, so what is the purpose of life? So Bankim Chandra ji said, oh, that's easy. Eat, sleep, and reproduce. That was his answer. Such a learned man. And that's not very different from the people today also think like this. But there are others who question, is that all there is to life? King Janaka asked Ashtavakra, what is the purpose of life? How can knowledge be acquired that will liberate me? And Ashtavakra told King Janaka, know the self as pure consciousness, the unaffected witness of the phenomenal world, and you will be free. And in verse 2, he says, he gives the solution. If you aspire liberation, shun the objects of the senses as poison and seek forgiveness, sincerity, kindness, contentment, and truth as nectar. So this is also the solution provided by Adi Shankaracharya in all the writings of his, Viveka Chudamani, etc., Viveka Vairagya, and that is also what Bhagwan Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. The solution for our liberation, moksha, is Viveka Vairagya. So bondage thus is due to ignorance of the real nature of self, and freedom is attained with knowledge that dispels this ignorance. In Viveka Chudamani, in fact, Adi Shankaracharya says, let people quote the scripture and sacrifice to the gods. Let them perform rituals and worship the deities. But there is no liberation without the realization of our identity with the Atman. I cannot even begin to add even a drop to what the scholars today have said, but I will sing a few verses from Adi Shankaracharya's Nirvana Shatakam. He explains it beautifully in a very few words, but I'll just sing the first and the last stanza. Mano buddhya ahankar chitta ninaham na cha shrotra jive na cha grana netre na cha vyoma bhumi na tejo na vayu Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. And then the last verse is Aham Nirvikalpo Nirakara Rupa Vibhurvyapasarvatra sarvendriyanam sadame samatvam namuktir nabandha chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham Chidanandarupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Sarvam Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you very much, Ritaji. Now Charanji is there, very sincere. And I wish Charanji to make some additional things for a while. From your
There are all good scholars, Dr. Jayanti, Sahoo. We exchange text actually on a daily basis, if not hourly. So I appreciate. Thank you all. I must say, Dr. Inglali's comments, Rita Matthews' comments, recitations, which I always listen in the morning. The Nirvana Shatakam, very, very beautifully sung. Thank you very much. Nothing to add, but I thought since Dr. Sahoo had asked me to join today, and I thought add a sentence or two. There was one verse which obviously Dr. Prabhakar and I review on a weekly basis, and currently that review is on Brihad Upanishad, and that was verse 4.3.7. So just look into that. I know we all focus on the methodology and the framework of logic that Yajnavalkya promoted for us to comprehend, which is, you also pointed out, Dr. Sahoo, the Neti Neti, and also Dr. Inglali, you also pointed out. One thing fascinating I have come across when I do the when I read the Upanishads and review that with Dr. Prabhakar under his guidance, yeah, there is logic in play in terms of us taking a stepwise approach to reach to certain conclusions. But certain verses are very direct. They are so direct that if we need to stay away from the logical methodology of reductionism, primarily, I must say, you're all philosophers and teaching philosophy. I found this verse a replica of that, not a replica, but similar pointers in Katha Upanishad also. When we talk about the Angushta Matra in the Upanishads, and here I see similar pointers being given to us. And now comes the decision point. While you were presenting, Dr. Sahoo, you talked about experiential mechanisms, and also you talked about the various dialogue between Maitreya and other ladies. So when the rishis guide us, they have employed both the mechanisms actually. And here and there, which I feel they have planted the concepts or the conclusions or the inferences of their experiential kind of. Now it is for us to follow that path, the prescribed path. And I'm going to make one last comment. When I start talking, but I'm going to make one comment. And you mentioned in your review, and Dr. Inglali and Rita also mentioned, the last conversation that took place locally in Richmond, where I had invited Dr. Shashi Tiwari and Dr. Prabhakar, and Dr. Tiwari presented on the Mundak Upanishad and Katha Upanishad as well. And while the Katha Upanishad was being reviewed as a panel discussion, she started the discussion asking Dr. Prabhakar, so how can moksha be received? How can I achieve moksha? Now that's a very inferential, very experiential kind of question. And I think you mentioned in your slide also admitting that I wish I could add to that from your perspective on the experiential side. And later on, I mentioned this to Dr. Prabhakar and to Dr. Tiwari. Moksha pursues you. You don't pursue moksha. All we can do is to experience that, is to create or apply the methods that the rishis have guided us. Vidya, Avidya, Isha Upanishad, all the pointers are there. For us, there is a reason they ask us to wake up in the morning or read Isha Upanishad or understand, is to lead us towards that experiential mechanisms. And thank you for bringing the framework at the international basis when you refer to Kant philosophies and so on and so forth, and try to attribute where Yajnavalkya philosophy fits in an overall framework. So I'm going to leave everybody with this. At least this is my comprehension I see a convergence of all the philosophies. I see a convergence of all the methods, but all that convergence is pointing towards here are the tools, mechanisms, and the thoughts. Practice it and develop that experiential kind of fulfillment, because rightfully so, when you get to it, the concept of shunyata arises, and the world and the universe actually fills you with that experience itself. With that, I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Charanji is really sincere, make notes, and give some beautiful, pointful thoughts, and interesting. He is able to help us to go deeper into that. And well, just to two words, Atma, Dr. Sahoo pointed out that you love your Atma, therefore everybody is lovable to you. Your wife, your children, your society, your if you don't love your Atma, you're hopeless. So that's one important thing. And another one is the Madhu. Madhu Madhishye, Madhu Manishye, Madhu Vakshyami, that Madhu Vidya. So in this manner, Yajnavalkya is eye-opener to all of us that consider things outside you to be useful and to be very important. And that this kind of teaching that is being pointed out by Dr. Sahoo, and of course there is always the time constraint to elaborate any point, but we only touch and then go to different one. But this touch itself is a matter of all senses. Therefore, depending upon people, we are able to get on. And so today, really interesting. All philosophers and interested people have gathered, and we hope for many more such interesting sessions. And next month, also the same time, last Sunday, we will have the role of Ayurveda to the and the clinical expertise. Uh,
I think there's a problem with the video. I'll stop the recording.